Welcome back, everybody, to The Slow Pitch. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how to get the most out of a Chamber of Commerce membership. I have been asked this question several times throughout the years, and there are several questions that kind of come up along the way, especially when I'm out networking, doing different things. And I thought it might be helpful to just go through some of these questions. So let's get started.
You're listening to the Slow Pitch Podcast, a podcast about selling less and closing more.
For starters, what is the Chamber of Commerce? What does it actually do for its members? Why should I join? That kind of thing. So the number one question that I always get is like, is it worth joining? You know, that kind of thing. So my answer would be this. Is it worth joining? The simple answer is it really depends on the chamber that you're attending, right? So I have been to several different chambers of commerce, and there are some that are very, very good. And then there are some that are not quite as good. And so I kind of would give you the caution and say, you should sample, you should test, you should see which one makes the most sense for you before you would ever know what the right answer is. And also know that people that are members probably not going to tell you, oh, this is not worth it, or it is worth it, without some sort of interest of their own, right? Because they want to make sure that there's more people there that they can get business from. So just understand that while I wouldn't say they're lying, I think they're probably in it for themselves, right? So you just got to keep that in mind when you ask that question. Next question, is it worth it as a small business? And so I would say from a small business standpoint, it usually is worth it. And then the other question that always follows is, well, how much does it cost? I can't answer that question. And the reason I can't answer that is because a lot of times every chamber is a little different. They charge different for different size companies. They charge for different reasons. So I would say asking the question of the chamber person is going to be your better area to get a cost standpoint. Depending on the size of the chamber, it can range a lot of times between a couple $100 to thousands of dollars. And a lot of times the larger dollar amount is because you're part of a larger company. If you have a lot of employees, you have a lot of people that will be attending, they tend to charge you a little bit more. But most of the time it's on the low, hundreds, a couple hundred, a few hundred. And that's usually worthwhile. I think I would ask you the question, how many leads and how many closes of leads would it take to recoup that dollar amount? And if that dollar amount isn't so insurmountable after a couple closed leads, it's worth probably joining. So the other question is like, well, my business is this type of business. Is it worth joining it based on that? So if you're a business that's a professional services business or some sort of a business that relates to a need for serving the community in general or B2B, those two are usually pretty good for somebody to join the chamber. If you're a manufacturer, maybe it just depends on what you manufacture, right? So B2B, B2C, typically great situation for those types of businesses to join a chamber. A couple other actionable items that people usually ask me about is, how do I get the most value out of the chamber? Because, every time I go, I don't get much out of it, or, those kinds of things, or my experience in the past hasn't been that good. So I'm going to kind of go through how do you get the most, but it's going to be kind of over the course of other questions that have been answered as well. And the other thing to keep in mind or think about is that while you're trying to get most of the membership value out of it, it's a long game. So I think you need to keep that in mind. If you're trying to recover a whole bunch of money right away, it's probably not going to happen. There are no quick fixes. It's like trying to run Google ads. It's trying to run TV commercials, or it's trying to just go out and sell people door to door. It's a long play, right? So this is one of those same types of things where you're not going to get value right away, but over time, I guarantee you there'll be value if you do some of these things that I'm about to talk about. So the first thing that people usually say is, well, what should I do when I join, after I join? So the first 30 days, this is the time I think that you should really be just meeting as many people as possible. Go to as many events as possible, attend as many things as you can that would make sense for the people that you're going to probably get in front of. So, for example, if they have breakfasts or they have lunches that a bunch of people they all go to these types of events, those are the ones you should go to, and those are the ones you should be networking at. Get there early enough to start to network with the people and start talking to a bunch of different people that are there, and try to get as many different cards as possible. We're going to talk about that in a second. But what you're going to want to do is learn as many people and learn what people do. Your job is not, during the first 30 days, to hand out as many business cards as possible. If you do that, I guarantee you will be looked at as not the right type of person at a chamber, and people will avoid you. So do not hand out business cards unless somebody asks you for a card. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but during your first 30 days, it's critical that you don't come across that way. So if you're not going to give out business cards, how do you network effectively? So here's what I always try to do. When I go to a networking event, I always try to have 3-5 questions in the back of my head that I know I can ask somebody to get a conversation started. The basic ones, obviously, are, what do you do? Or, what type of business do you have? Or that kind of thing. Those are basic questions. Those types of questions are everybody asks. So rather than asking some of those questions, because I don't want to sound like everybody else, sometimes my first question is simply, I don't know enough about what you do, but more importantly, who did you want to meet here and why? And so what they will do is they will teach me who they want to be in front of. So first they'll usually go into what they do, and then they can't usually answer, most people can't answer, well, who do I want to meet here? Which is a little bit odd to me, because usually when I go to an event, I know who I want to talk to already. So if you have a chamber that you attend and you have a list of people or members that are going to be attending on the website when you register, you should look through that list. And if you look through that list, see the people that are going to be attending and realize, oh, here's somebody that I should talk to. That is going to be a target or one of the targets you have. And you should know that when you walk in the door. And so when you have somebody coming to you like me, first thing out of their mouth says, hey, who do you want to meet here today? You can answer that question, first of all. And guess what? If they've been around for a while, they probably know that person and could introduce you to that person. That would be like gold, right? So that's one of those things. So know who you want to meet. And then in your first few days that you're going to be networking out there, you're going to want to make sure that you have some questions that you can ask people. How did you get into this business is another good question I ask. Well, how did you get into that business? Why are you doing this? What was the driving factor of getting into this business? And believe it or not, some of that history sometimes comes out, and it's interesting what people will tell you. You learn a lot about different people, where they came from, why they're there now, and what they saw as opportunities. Because that's a little bit fascinating to me, I can dig into some more questions and follow-up questions. What did you do before that? Why did you make that shift or change? What was the problem that you saw that I don't understand? Explain to me some of that, some more, that kind of thing. Really what I want to try to do is when I'm done with that person, I really want to be able to know what they do and who they want to talk to. And so that kind of leads to another question that comes up sometimes is, when you're a new member, what are some of the mistakes that you make? Or I see a lot of mistakes that are made by new members. And does that cost them opportunities? And what are those things? And so I said one of those things earlier, which is handing out business cards like free candy, right? If you start handing out your business card willy-nilly to everybody, here's what you're going to have. Somebody invariably is going to say something behind your back about how you just don't get it, which is, you don't want to be that person, right? The other thing is you're probably going to find your business card laying on the ground out in the parking lot or somewhere in that networking area, whether that's a restaurant or who knows what, right? You don't want to have your card laying on the ground where people step on it. Number one, it costs you money, but more importantly, that's not your image. You don't want to be looked at as somebody that's been stepped on. So don't hand out all these business cards to everybody. Make somebody ask you for the business card. That's really something that would make a big difference in making you stand out from somebody else. I can't tell how many events I've been to where I've been there, let's say for an hour and a half, and never handed out a business card because nobody asked me for it. And guess what? The reason nobody asked me for it was because nobody that I spoke to was interested in what I had to sell. But when I've had somebody go, you know what, give me one of your cards, I could use that. That's when I know I'm likely going to talk to that person again, right? I'm going to at least follow up with them. We're going to connect again. We may go out for coffee. We may have some more conversations, but that person has some interest. I'm not going to try to sell them. What I might do is, because they've asked for a card, I might say to them, I'm happy to hand you one of my cards. What should I do next? I don't want to assume anything. Are you just collecting cards, or do you think we should ever talk again? What's the reason we should exchange cards? Or if I get their card too, like in that exchange, I say, why don't you give me one of your cards as well? And then I might say, would you mind if I just gave you a call again sometime next week, just to touch base again and see if there's anything else I can help you with? Because that goes a long way in terms of making that connection. And also in the week that comes up, I have their card in front of me. I may run into somebody at another networking event where I say, boy, I need to connect these two people because they're actually good referral sources to each other. which I'm going to get into in a minute here too. But that's one of the things that people don't understand is while everybody's there to get business, nobody is there to buy, right? And so as a new member, you shouldn't be selling. What you should be doing is connecting other people. The more people you connect, the more that they're going to look at you as somebody who knows everybody. And the more people that you can do that to, the more value that you have to the networking, that networking event. Because what ends up happening is people start to come to you and say, do you know that person? Or do you know somebody that does this? And that would be a good referral for them, and you become valuable to more people. So the other question that comes up sometimes is, how many events should I go to? Like, they have a lot of events. What should I go to? What's the best ones? What should I do? What should I not do? And I go back to, again, it really depends on you. And my initial feeling would be like the chamber that I belong to, one of the big ones that I belong to, they have the best. It's a breakfast event. It's 200 people that attend that event. I get to meet at least 8 to 10 other people minimum every time I go to that event. So if that's going to be the case, and I'm going to go to that type of event, that would be the one I would recommend anybody go to, right? But if that's not very productive in your particular chamber, find out what the one event is every month that everybody goes to. That's the one you need to go to, right? That's how you're going to get results. The question of how many events you should go to is an interesting question, because some people think you need to go to everything. And yes, you can for a while in the beginning, but after a while, you need to value your own time. And you also don't want to be the person that's there everywhere, every time. Everybody knows who you are, and you're always looking for new business. It kind of comes across the wrong way, right? So you need to be missing every once in a while, even on some of the big events and big things that you should be going to. You should be missing. Just kind of keep that in mind, figuring out which ones are the best ones. In the beginning, you should be hitting as many as you can. But after a while, find the 1, 2, maybe 3 every month that you should be going to. That will give you the best bang for your buck, if you will. All right, I think that's enough for this time, because I think there's a lot more to go into. In the next episode, what I'd like to do is kind of get into a little bit more of the advanced stuff and some of the ways that you can introduce yourself. And also, what are some of the things that are political that happen at the chamber? What are some of the roles you can take on or things you can do? I think that would be helpful to get into how that can drive business for you later. So I think we're going to get into that in the next episode. If you found this episode to be a little bit helpful for you because you've not been involved in a chamber, I would highly recommend sharing this with somebody else who also might need this information. It's amazing how many people don't know this, and I wish more people knew this, because trying to network at a chamber event or other events can sometimes get a little bit daunting, and I get that, and it doesn't have to be that way. What are the objectives of your chamber membership? And then figure out what are the steps you need to do to get those things accomplished. And we'll kind of get into some of the more of those advanced things in the next episode. Until next time, slow down and close more.
Thank you for listening to The Slow Pitch. Do you have a question about sales? Call or text your question at 608-708-SLOW. That's 608-708-7569. Or you can email them to questions@theslowpitch.com. Slow down and close more.